Hello and welcome to EBAday 2022. I'm Debbie Bell-Hosking. I've got a great guest with us right now, Rohit Talwar, CEO of Fast Future. His mission is to get us thinking differently and challenging us. And in fact, he recently, today, completed the challenge speech on metaverses, cryptocurrencies and AI. Now, I'm not the one to explain that to you, so we're going to go straight to Rohit. Rohit, welcome.
Thank you for having me here.
It's really great to see you. Let's start at the beginning. In your own words, can you explain what a metaverse is?
Yeah, so what we've had for quite a few years now is kids playing in these virtual worlds like World of Warcraft, like Minecraft, and they've been buying goods in there, whether it's weapons, clothes or whatever, and they've been trading with each other. And that economy is becoming worth 40 billion plus. So everyone's beginning to notice that and saying, wow. And so now you're getting a new set of players like Facebook and others setting up their own metaverses, trying to encourage people in there to do business, to trade with each other, to buy and sell. And so the banks have got very interested to say, well, what are the opportunities? So we've seen people like JP Morgan go in and just put up a shop front for now, so they can start talking to customers. In Korea, lots of the banks like Hana Bank and others are experimenting with having a place where they can do KYC with their customers. They can have conversations, they can start to offer products and services. You've got a new company called Terra Luna offering metaverse mortgages, so that if you want to buy a parcel of land in a metaverse, they've just offered a mortgage for one of around $45,000. So people are starting to get excited to say, wow, this is the next place where customers are going to go trade with each other, buy goods and services. Then as financial institutions, how do we understand what's going on there? And how do we create products and services that work in that world to tap into what Citi and Goldman Sachs estimate could be an $8 to $13 trillion economy.
Now, I have a 12-year-old son, so I'm tapping into what you're talking about now in terms of his metaverse and his gaming. And you've touched on the banks. Can you give us some examples, so give us some more pictures of how this is currently working in the banking sector and payments?
Well, so banking and payments really haven't got there yet. All of the payments tend to be run by the metaverse platforms. So for example, Ariana Grande did a concert in one called Fortnite. And over 2 days, 78 million people attended this free concert. But they made $20 million out of that, selling NFTs of the earrings, the clothes, different things. So they were selling these non-fungible tokens and made a huge amount of money. What's interesting is there was no bank involved. This was Fortnite being the payments platform. So the banks are starting to say, how do we get involved in this? But no one's there yet on the payment side.
Okay, so you're saying no one's there yet, right? How are you going to hold their hand and encourage them to come across to these ideas and these platforms?
So the point I've been making this morning was you don't have to go there. Right. Most of us tend to react in quite an emotional way to this stuff. And my point is, acknowledge the emotions and then invest time to just understand it, and not understand it from the point of view what's wrong with it and why it doesn't fit your model of the world, but understand it from the point of view of these 21, 22, 25-year-olds who have created it. Stand in their shoes and understanding what they're creating, understand why they're doing it, how it works, and then decide how you want to play, if you want to play at all. You don't have to be there, but understand it and then make decisions based on understanding, not on prejudice or bias or fear that it could challenge you. That's the real focus now, is the understanding, the learning. You can bring the emotion in at any time, but don't let fear guide your decision making.
So almost don't be overwhelmed by the expanse of possibilities. Hone it down, investigate step by step, little bits, see what could work for you, see what may not, and experiment a bit.
Understand what it is, experiment, do meaningful experiments, don't do trivial ones, but focus on learning and don't worry about making money to start off with. Focus on what it takes to build something in that space, the kind of skills you need, you're handing a lot of responsibility now to 21, 22-year-olds who get it, who think differently, very creative. Do you want that? And do you want to create a new kind of business stream where all of the assumptions, all the economic models are very different to what you do today? It's not an easy shift, and that's why we're saying really invest the time to understand it.
And you said do meaningful experiments, not trivial ones.
Yeah.
How? Like, how do we know we're doing a meaningful experiment? What do you mean by that?
Well, the trivial one would be literally just the equivalent of a website 20 years ago where it was just a banner and nothing there. At least do something interactive. Have something where you can engage with customers, you can share information. Maybe if you've got Korean residents living in the UK and you're a UK bank, you could have someone, a Korean speaker, respond to those people. You can do it in the metaverse, whereas you can't have one in all your physical branches. So it starts to create a very interesting and interactive opportunity to do something useful, do something that you can learn from customers, where you can add value, and you can start to assess what it takes to build a metaverse presence. You can start to see what your competitors are doing, start to see who comes. Because there's an awful lot of people making money in these metaverses, designing the outfits, skins as they're called, people making money out of games, but they're pretty young generally. So what do they want in terms of the management of their money? Because traditionally, Fortnite and others have managed the money and the kids have held it. Now we're saying give it to a third party, a bank or someone. Well, show me what the value is that you're adding.
Okay, and this is EBAday, right? We're here about bankings and payments. So once your challenge speech completed today, I did sense an air of excitement. There was a buzz, and no doubt you spoke to people afterwards. What was the feedback within this environment after your speech?
So there were three things that people fed back on. They loved the message about don't be scared of this, don't feel like you've got to jump in, and it's okay to stay in your lane. But the most important thing is to just look out of the window at what's changing and understand it without judgment before you make any decisions. Secondly, people really like the energy in terms of sharing these ideas with passion and the examples, and kind of blowing their minds with all the new things that are happening and all the new product and revenue streams. For example, I was saying, why can't you treat my Chelsea football programs as an asset? They're worth something, I can trade them. In the same way as I can trade my air miles for something that's worth cash. Why can't you treat all of those as an asset and really open your minds up to these possibilities? And they loved that, because I wasn't telling them off, I was just giving them ideas to say, here's where you could expand to, and it's up to you as payments experts to work out how you play in these spaces, add value to the customer and make some money for yourselves.
I mean, it's a very creative landscape, is it not?
It is absolutely, and it's young people who don't know they can't do it, who don't know all the reasons why people here think you might not be able to do it. They don't know all the regulatory hurdles and all the GDPR stuff. They're just going for it. And so that's really exciting. You have to put the constraints around, obviously, to make sure it's legal, decent and honest, but that shouldn't constrain the creativity to start with. And that's where I think the excitement comes, and that's where banks have the potential to grow exponentially in the next couple of years. If I talk to a banker today and said you could double your revenue in 3 years, they'd have me committed. But now this space is open up. They could do, if they have the imagination. I'm not saying they have to, but if they look at it and embrace it, they could literally double their revenue in around 3 years.
Let's fast forward. I love the name of your business, Fast Future. So let's look a little ahead in the future. Could it be that if people don't start to begin to understand this, that they could be left behind?
Well, I think if you look next few years, there'll still be very valuable businesses to be had doing what you're doing today. The issue is more about what level of today's business might move into the metaverse and what new revenue streams might be created that we're not part of today, and do we want a piece of that? So I think you'll see a lot more of that the universe of payments is going to grow and grow and grow, and the banks just have to decide how much of that universe they want to play in, and whether they try and do it all themselves and be masters of the universe, or do what they want to be part of an ecosystem where there's lots of players working together to create new value.
And you adopt all that talent rather than trying to have to do it all yourself.
So you might have the developers creating the NFTs that represent the land or the buildings. You might have people who are creating new business models. You might provide some of the payment mechanisms and the sources of finance, but you might bring a lot of people together to create these new propositions, particularly young people who get what the new players want in that world and get how they want to, if you like, buy and sell.
And like you said earlier, they don't seem to have that fear constraint.
Absolutely.
Why do you think a lot of us are fearful of making that step?
Because it's so new, it's so different, it so challenges the idea that I might have a pair of Gucci sneakers and I'm going to use those to pay for a holiday in the physical world because they've gone up so much in value. Or that I'm going to use my Gucci sneakers to buy a plot of land in the Snoopverse in the sandbox where Snoop Dogg has got his own mini world. And that whole idea is just mind-blowing because it's all digital. None of it is a physical asset.
It's not tangible.
It's not tangible, but it doesn't mean it's of no less value because there's a group of people, a growing group of people, who've grown up digital. And to them, stuff in the digital world is much more relevant and much more valuable. So me buying a piece of art in the digital world, well, I can see it. If I've paid 68 million, as someone did for a Beeple artwork, I can watch it, I can look at it in a virtual world. Whereas if I buy a $68 million piece of physical artwork, that goes straight into secure storage. And I might visit it once a year to see it. So that generation is saying, no, I've made the money in crypto, whatever, I'm going to buy it, I'm going to create a virtual gallery, no one can steal it from me, and I'm going to think very differently to many of the people here.
As a final thought, and perhaps even to pose a question to our EBAday audience, and the ones who haven't been able to attend who may be watching this video, final thought, what is it you'd like to say to them? And pose that question just to get them thinking on the track of metaverse.
So my question is not just about metaverse, it's about the whole set of changes coming with technology, AI and metaverses, NFTs, tokenization. My question to them is how much learning are you doing about these things and how much are you standing in the shoes of the creators to understand what they're trying to enable rather than trying to make their developments fit your worldview. Understand their worldview and then start to think about how might you play in that world.
So almost like you said earlier, put yourself in their shoes, understand their point of view, rather than trying to make them fit some sort of predetermined idea you have already.
Exactly like when we started with the internet and social media, everyone was going, how can I make money out of it? And the point was the creators weren't thinking about how you made money, they were talking about experiences. Now, a lot of the creators are saying, how could you make money? But they've got very different economic models. So you need to understand them. So you don't try and take a physical world model and apply it in these virtual worlds.
And you believe that for the banking and payments sector, this could be a very exciting step?
It could be. If you understand it and you embrace it and you're willing to try and experiment, then it could work. Equally, it could be something that you just think that's a step too far, we don't want to go there, we're very happy growing our business in the current streams, and we're okay with losing some activities to the metaverse because we can grow other things to take their place.
Okay, lovely. I think that's a good place for us to wind up our chat. Rohit, thank you very, very much for coming to chat to us today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.